What's up, Build Show? You ready for episode 2? Yeah, I'm standing next to a concrete truck. You know what that means? Yeah, it means we're casting that foundation today. We got pump trucks. We're sending concrete down the line. We got trucks cleaning out, trucks dropping new concrete there. It is one of the most exciting days of construction because we're putting concrete in over there. We got the Giuliani crew here. They are the famed contractors of the South Shore here. Jim's been working with them for years. We got Jim Wolfer, the nerve of that concrete truck. We got Jim Wolfer from Shoreline Builders here. And most important, and all you contractors can relate to this, we've totally aggravated this neighborhood. It was nice and quiet yesterday. Now we got trucks, we got traffic, we got concrete in the road that we're shoveling, but we're doing this all for you. So we can bring today's episode, Casting Concrete Foundations, Forever Home, on the Build Show. I'm Steve Basic. Let's get after it.
Forever Home, a Build original series, is brought to you by Builders First Source, AZEK Exteriors, Huber Engineered Woods, and Rockwool. Forever Home, a Build original series.
All right, Build Show. Steve Basic, architect, out here. We're out here on the Forever Home site. And I want to take a few minutes and talk to you a little bit about one of the products that we're using out here, Rockwool. So there's no organic material in there. This doesn't sustain any type of mold growth, any mildew. Now, one of the beauties of this also, it's in fact fire resistant. Yeah, it can take up to about 1800 degrees Fahrenheit. It's also sound absorbent because of the way the fibers are constructed inside of this, and it is in fact water resistant. Now, I have here a couple pieces of Comfort Board 80. So the Rockwool stone wool product comes in a comfort board, which is a little stiffer, can be used on the outside of the foundation. You can also use it above grade as an exterior. You can use it on the interior of your foundation walls. It also comes in a comfort bat. And the bat, you're going to see us using that here. We're going to use it on all of our interior walls. We're going to be down below grade, using it in our stud cavities. You're going to see the Safe and Sound product. So there's a pretty wide range of what they have available. If you're looking for an insulation that can carry a pretty wide spectrum of materials for your next project, I'd go hit up rockwool.com. You can follow them on Instagram on RockwoolNA and see all the products they have to offer. We use them all around the country, so get with their reps and find out exactly what product you should be using on your next project. All right, we made it up on the mound. It's almost like they made this for me to shoot the video here. You know, walking along this pile of, I won't even say dirt, this is sand. We're going to talk about the foundation in a second, but I think one of the important aspects to talk about with foundation is, you know, when you dig the hole, you get an assessment of, okay, what's in the hole. You can find rock, we have to blast, you can find, you know, gravel, stones, can be really bony, I call it. This here is like you're excavating at the beach. I mean, this is some pretty fine sand that any sand and gravel yard would absolutely love to have. And one of the beauties of that sand is if I took a 5-gallon pail of water and we poured it here, it would literally just disappear. The beauty of that is the fact that when you're talking about a foundation, one of your biggest fears is what happens with the water. We have an elevation drop of probably about 30 feet on this site. And so we can drain it to daylight. I'm really not too worried about it, but in talking with Jim, Shoreline Builders, who's the GC on this, he said we had a kind of torrential downpour a couple days ago when this was being formed up, and he said the water literally disappeared as it fell. But it's not going to stop us from putting in that water management sequence, pipe, pea stone, filter fabric, all the things that we would normally put in, because you never know. It could be a small condition on one side where it might not challenge the whole foundation, but one small leak in a corner is enough to aggravate a homeowner and wreak problems. So, foundation day. Yeah, it's an exciting day. Why? We get concrete, we get big trucks, we get formwork, we got a bunch of guys running around. There's kind of a whole team here. One of the things I love about Shoreline Builders, it's owned by a gentleman, Jim. That's Jim over there on the sand pile. And he's on the phone taking care of business. But if you went over there and asked Jim, why are you here today? And this is for all you young builders. Do we have a qualified team doing the foundation work? We do. Jim never lets things go unattended. Either him or his son Taylor, they're going to be out here. They're going to be making sure that the anchor bolts are getting put in right, because when the inspection comes and the building inspector has a problem, guess who he has the argument with? Jim or Taylor. Not any of those concrete guys. So Jim wants to make sure that when he's out here that he's checking on things. Yes, he's on the phone and he's doing things, but we were already standing over here, we were talking, Jim was flashing around. I think it's a really great lesson to be learned by younger builders and older builders if you're not doing it, because it's very easy to say, oh, I got my scope of work, I got my contract from the concrete guys, I'll just turn Tommy and the concrete guys loose and I'll show up when they're peeling the forms off in a couple days. But this is concrete. If there's a problem, you probably don't want to understand there's a problem when the concrete has been cured and the forms are off. It's a really hard time to solve that problem. So Jim had walked around, made sure all the rebar was in the walls. Everything was as intended to be. So very much a part of the process, and that's why Jim's been able to be in business and be extremely successful for 30 years. So, foundation. Let's run through the team. We got a pump truck. We got concrete trucks. You can see that we got a concrete truck. It's in back. It's dumping concrete into a bin. Concrete gets pumped up through the pumper. You see the guy in the green shirt that's holding the red hose? Yeah, he's the owner of the concrete company. So he's the one that's actually placing the concrete. He has a guy in the yellow shirt next to him. The guy in the yellow shirt's got a shovel. He's making sure that anything that the guy in the green shirt needs, he's his direct assistant, helping him out, moving concrete with that shovel. We have a couple other guys. You can see there's a gentleman wearing his t-shirt over his head. He's got a hose-like product and he's holding it looks like a giant battery charger. What that is that's a vibrating machine. And you stick the nozzle down, it's a pipe probably about 4 feet. And it vibrates, and what it does is it's taking the air out of the concrete so that when you peel back the forms, concrete's falling into every nook and cranny. We don't have a bunch of voids on the side of the wall there. And then we have the gentleman in the black shirt and the gentleman in the teal shirt, if you will. They're going around and they're finishing off the top of the wall and they're setting the anchor bolts. Now, anchor bolts for this project, these are 5/8 of an inch. They have a minimum of 7-inch embedment. This is all coming from our structural engineer. And the placement of them, it's every 48 inches and within 12 inches of every corner. So it's a pretty standard layout. We are probably, as the crow flies, maybe about 3 miles from the ocean, so technically we're in a high wind zone, but our exposure here is pretty much nil. So, but that's our team going on there. And then of course we have our formwork. Not a whole lot of magic in that. One of the things I was impressed by, that the gentleman in the green shirt, before the concrete trucks showed up, he went around and visually inspected every inch of the formwork. So, a little bit about the foundation. You can see there's basically, let's say, 3 compartments. There's the large compartment over there that has all the cradles for the formwork, right? That's how the formwork gets in and out of the hole. There's a truck with a crane, they load them up, they haul them out of there. But that's the basement proper there. And basement proper meaning it's exactly what you would think when I say basement. You go down a set of stairs, it's open to the basement. We have a large workshop down there. We're gonna have a bathroom, a couple hobby rooms, and office space down there. And then of course the dirty part of the basement, that's going to house all of our mechanical equipment and water heaters and such. Call your attention to, there's a small rectangle here that you can see formed in this larger rectangle, but it's open to the basement. And what you're looking at there is, that is the stairwell. So we actually have the foundation wall coming around there, and that stairwell is going to be a set of stairs that goes from the garage to the basement. And you might have seen these on other projects. We did it at Build Show Build Boston. There, we do it on probably, I would say about 70% of our projects that we do today. 10 years ago, we were maybe doing it on 10% of the projects. But when you start looking at, let's put an exterior bulkhead in, and then, you know, having that go down into the basement. Exterior bulkheads, they're a little bit of a challenge because sooner or later, water is going to challenge them enough to win the battle. You put the metal bulkhead on the top, the stairs are a little steeper, they're not protected necessarily. You have to shovel in the winter time to get access to the basement from the outside. So there's a whole bunch of issues that come along with putting that bulkhead on the outside. Doing a stair on the inside, it's fully protected, it's inside the house. I could park my cars. This is a 3-car garage here, which is that third component of the basement. If I wanted to store my skis, my surfboard, my golf clubs, any of that in the basement, I could go down the basement, grab my golf clubs, bring them up the stairs and put them in my car. I don't have to store my golf clubs inside my garage. It's using the basement as part of my storage system. The third component here is, this is the garage. And I think you can see, but there's a few uprights as we go march down this wall. You can see there's 2x12s that are ripped to 10 inches. It's a 10-inch foundation wall. And that is a person door, so you'll be able to walk in. Call your attention, notice the person door is directly in line with the stairs. That's design intent right there. What that does is, say I want to carry a canoe or a large 2-person kayak into the basement. I don't have to do any L turns. I can walk in that door and walk right down the stairs. I can store a 40-foot ladder in my basement, carry it up the stairs and walk it out the door. To the right of that, you'll see there's about 16 inches of concrete, and then we have a 16-foot opening. So that's going to be a double garage door, and then we have a wall, and we'll finish with a 9-foot door on the end. So 3-car garage. For the experienced eye, you might look at that and say, okay, Steve, I see something wrong. If that's a garage, why is it fully excavated? Why do we not have the dirt in the center like we usually do and just did a trench excavation? And why are these forms fully 8 feet and not 5-footers? And that's a great question, but I have a great answer. If you remember in the first episode, we tore a house down. When we tore the house down, that house had a basement. This house is a little bigger than the house we tore down, but it essentially sits and encompasses pretty much the whole basement of the original house with some expansion points. So when we excavated and we pulled that all out, then we were left with this elevation from the old basement. And foundations, they want to go on virgin soil. I mean, we have put them on engineered soil. We could have trenched this, we could have put stone in, we could compact it, but it's probably as much or more of a hassle than it is for the concrete guy to just say, you know what, I'll form that up in 8-footers, and then we're only left with the slab inside. And so the slab, the plan there is, yes, we're going to backfill that. We'll bring it up in about 6-inch lifts and compact it every 6 inches. So yeah, 8-foot walls, it's probably going to come up about 7 feet, 6.5 feet. So we're talking 13, 14 lifts. It'll get compacted. This stuff compacts really, really nice. But Jim, experienced builder, already has a plan. When we were talking earlier about this, he was saying, you know, we probably won't even pour that slab. We're shooting this video here, it's the end of July. He said, we'll probably pour that slab in April of next year. So that dirt will sit. Why will it sit? I'll point that out in some future videos, but I would guarantee in some of these corners, that dirt is going to trickle down and create some voids under there. So we really want to give it as much time as possible to let that sink down settle, compact. And you know, Jim, I'm sure we'll probably have some water or sprinklers going in there, because that water will help take that sand down and compact it very well. Also, the other thing, good builders understand that the homeowner is expecting to purchase a brand new house, not a used house. I can't tell you how many projects I have been on. They'll pour the concrete walls. 2 weeks from now, they'll pour a slab in here, and then that means that slab's got to go through the next 10 months of construction. Somebody drops some paint or some wood stain. They drop their hammer, they chip the slab. The reality is, in that 10 months of trying to protect it, stuff happens. When stuff happens, the homeowner isn't buying a brand new slab anymore. It's a used slab, because now it's chipped and they have to fix it or just live with it and tell the homeowner, hey, yeah, the electrician dropped his hammer, sorry about that. No, take your time, think it through, proper sequencing, and plan for the fact that problems exist, right? One of the things I wanted to call your attention to, notice we have the pump truck. It finishes with about 12 feet of a flexible hose. But notice near the top of that flexible hose, there's a cuff on it. The cuff is attached to a blue line. And what that plastic hose is, it's an air hose. And the cuff there, and I'm calling it a cuff because I'm going to make the analogy to a blood pressure cuff. The gentleman in the blue shirt there is the one that's operating the pump truck, but he's also operating that cuff. When the lead guy that's running the trunk for the pump truck, if he wants to stop concrete, he whistles over, tells them to cut it, they engage the cuff pinches that rubber hose and shuts off concrete. It means that all the stuff that's in that vertical riser of concrete doesn't come down through the hose when he shuts the pump off at the truck. He can cut it right off there and you'll just get like the last 8 feet or so. So you can see there, he just opened it up, they're moving it, they're about to, I can hear the concrete flowing there. Why don't we'll jump around the other side, we'll get a slightly different perspective over by the pump truck. All right, so jumped on the other side here. You can see they have a bunch of the concrete in. This gentleman's going around and basically finishing the top, right? It comes in kind of rough, all the stone and aggregate makes for a very rough top. His job is to smooth it out so that we get a really good seal on our sill seal and our mud sill and that framing on top of it. Go over here and, should I walk the plank? Yeah, we're not doing that today. So, got the concrete guys over there. One of the things I didn't talk about were the basic metrics of what we're doing here today. Concrete. This is a 3,000 pound concrete. It's pretty typical for foundation systems. For those of you that don't know anything about it, it's basically water, Portland cement, and an aggregate. In this case here, it's a gravel. It's got a little stone and sand mix in there. This foundation consists of, I think Jim said, right around 100 yards. Each concrete truck is good for about 11 yards of concrete. So we're going to have 9 trucks here today. You really got to appreciate these guys that are out here doing this every day, just walking along the tops. If I was up there, and I'm very much a cat when I'm walking, you guys know that, but I would still be kind of a little iffy. And these guys are running it like, you know, they're walking down the runway. So you can see this gentleman here setting all of the anchor bolts. You know, we have a really good example of it here. The anchor bolts want to sit towards the outside of the wall, basically be about 2 3/4 of an inch on center inboard from the outside face, because our mud sill's a 2x6, 5.5 inches. So that puts those anchor bolts in pretty much the center of our mud sill. A couple things here, 48 inches on center, you can see that spread out. But notice we have the 2 in the corner there. We need 2 bolts within 12 inches of each corner. So I think that's it for today. That's our forever home. Out here pouring some concrete. And I said pouring, if only my structural engineer from college heard me, he would correct me immediately. You never pour concrete, you pour lemonade, Steve. We cast concrete. All right, old-time engineer, cast concrete, however you want to call it. We're pretty much done with it today. So yeah, we're going to come back. Forms are going to get stripped. Probably tomorrow they'll start doing it. And these are 9-foot tall forms. So they're going to basically, by the time we put the slab in and add the double mud sill, which is traditional here, and then we have our waterproofing, we have a bunch of drainage, water management, and then we're going to put some insulation on the outside of the wall. We'll be back here for that. All right, build show. Well, I know I can't compete with the excitement of being out at the job site, but before we get to that excitement, we do have to do some planning. And I think it's only right that we talk through the foundation plan, and we'll just tell you what my thoughts were, my thinking, why some dimensions are such, and how we plan foundation plans. So I brought up the foundation plan. You can see it here for the Forever Home. Let's start out in this area here. This is basically the garage. You can see it here. Goes around, comes down here, over here and up. There's a curb there and a little curb there. So the thing about the foundation plan here and the openings are, these openings are set for 9'6". So that is typically a single garage door at 9 foot. The 6 inches comes in where we put two 2x6s on each side inside there. And the reason for that is we need to build in the system so we have something that we can attach the rails to, hence the 3 inches of treated lumber there. But as that door goes down, those wheels need to ride, and they need to ride down the inside of that curb. Inside meaning between the two curbs. So we have to oversize the opening, build it in, and then the whole garage door system sits inside of it. So if that's 9'6" for a single door, that's 19 foot. Then if this is 16 foot 6 inches, obviously that's for a 16 foot door. And then up here we have 3 foot 6 inches, and that is for a 3 foot wide hinged door up here. So again, pretty straightforward foundation plan. And this is a pretty simple lot. And what I mean by a simple lot, pretty much the grade change here is maybe about 1 foot overall in the house. If we took a look at, say, down this side of the building, right, from here all the way down here, we're talking 48, 50 feet, and we maybe drop 1 foot, right? So we don't really drop a lot. So what I mean by simple is a lot of times we get taxed with some very challenging sites. I mean, I did one house where I think the foundation, footings, slabs, there were probably 20 different elevations as this thing stepped down the hillside, which was all rock. And we had to blast and hammer out a bunch of it. But this one here, this is a pretty easy site. For all intensive purposes, it's pretty much, we consider it a flat site. So that's why I say it's pretty easy. That being said, one of the things that the homeowner wanted, and we've been doing a lot of them quite often. So here is a stairwell, and this goes down from the garage. That allows you to use part of your basement as storage. He's going to have a workshop down there, so it allows him to bring material and tools and transport them without ever having to go through the house. And you'll notice it is no surprise, if we switch to blue here, that the stairwell and that hinge door align perfectly. Yeah, so if you wanted to carry a 40-foot ladder or a 20-foot canoe down into your basement, you can. So we're trying to make that pretty easy. We try and think about some of these things, right? Every building, you know, that we design, we certainly want it to look nice. We certainly care about the aesthetics. We want to be cool, have it looking really cool. But you have to always remember, at some point, somebody has to live in that house, somebody has to work in that house. That house has to become a tool for their life. And so it has to function well. And so there's all of these considerations that we take and we consider, you know, when someone is bringing groceries home, like where do they go from the garage, and where's the kitchen relative to the garage? Where, if I want to bring stuff into the basement, store my golf clubs, my bikes, my snowboards, fishing poles, all of that stuff. Is it easy to get it up to the garage or not? So these are the things that, yes, we concern ourselves with that, you know, I think should be in every part of the design. Sorry, just moving this. Man. There we go. So, that being said, let's get on to the main body of the house. So, we'll trace that with a heavy red line. So, if I trace the foundation here, you'll see there's certainly some ins and outs. This comes all the way down. We have a little bump out here that comes across. And that is basically the whole foundation. That's where that 10-inch wall, and you can see it's called out right here, 10-inch wide concrete foundation wall, 2-foot by 12-inch concrete footing. So those are called out. If we want to look at what these other lines are, we have the lines of the footing, the lines of the foundation wall, and then a 4-inch perforated drain with filter sock. So we call out exactly what all these lines actually mean inside there. So those are all tracing around, and you can see we have our sump pit in there and to daylight. In fact, if you remembered in the next video, you'll probably see it, but we ended up moving that sump pump to a location over here that we just thought was better. So we put it in there to let the building inspector know that we're putting one in. We put it in there so that the builder can put it in his pricing. The location of it, yeah, that doesn't really matter as much until we're actually putting it in. A couple other things about the exterior of this. You can see we have a couple window wells happening here. We have a 30 window, 31. Those are just window designations. 28. Notice this one is a lot larger. That's because that is an egress well. Yes, we're going to have an area in here that could double as a guest bedroom or whatever. And whenever you put one of those in as an egress well, you need to be able to climb out, so you can't have the rough opening or glass opening, or I should say air opening, higher than 44 inches above the finished floor. The window's got to be 20 by 24 inches. You can crawl out into the egress well, and then you need to be able to climb out of there. So you can see these have some stairs that are built right into them. They get dropped in as a system, and you'll see it in a couple of the upcoming episodes where we talk about that. But the foundation, like I said, 10-inch wall, 24-inch wide footing. The 24-inch wide footing, we typically put 2 number 5s in the bottom of the footing, roughly about 3 inches up. The wall gets 1 at the bottom, 1 at the mid rail, and 2 up at the anchor bolts. So we run 4 up there, and then we run J-bars from the footing into the wall that typically have an 8-inch horizontal leg and about a 24-inch vertical leg. So that's pretty standard practice for our walls here. This is a 9-foot foundation wall. So 9-foot foundation wall, that's going to typically yield around 8'7" in finish height in the basement. So, you lose about 5 inches in slab foundation framing, but then you're going to gain a little in the mud sills. So the net is about a 5-inch loss. A couple other areas to talk about. Notice that we have a beam line here. So the beam line, I've coordinated the lolly columns, 4-inch lolly column, unless noted otherwise. If you're wondering what UNO means, beam pocket down at the end to grab that beam. We have a couple beam pockets here, beam pocket there, and those footings are 12-inch deep with 5 number 5s each way, and they're 3 foot by 3 foot. So those are going to help carry that floor frame as an intermediate floor frame. Now, you will see in one of the future episodes when we're talking about framing, you know, you have that kind of standard framing that happens there where lolly columns, you go in a lot of basements, they're all in a nice row. Everything makes kind of sense. But then you have some that I would call them orphans. So like this one, right? So there is a small column, that's actually a wood column, and this is in a 2'4" footing. So it's a little smaller than the other ones, but that's because that's just help carrying that framing to cut the stair opening. We do have a high strength steel or structural steel 3.5 by 3.5 by 1/4 inch steel column there. Now the reason we couldn't, and we have another one here, the reason we couldn't use lolly columns there is that we've kind of gone beyond the capacity of a lolly column, and the structural engineer just wanted stronger columns in there, so we moved to the square steel column, and you'll see that in some upcoming episodes. But those sit pretty much on that 3 foot footing. This one here, it's a 3 foot footing, and we put both of those columns on there. I mean, this one's carrying some load, but it's really not carrying a whole lot. So a lot of times, you know, rather than put in joist or big LVL hangers with 50 nails, we'll just put another lolly column next to it and let gravity do its thing there. And that's also relieves some of the load to the steel column there. So just gave me a command that I was disconnected, but it's not. And of course, there's a couple other smaller columns here that are help framing the opening. You can see this is just showing where the stairs hit. These are all fully dimensioned, right? I always dimension. And it's funny, I've never asked, do you dimension to the inside of the foundation wall or to the outside? Because I know if I ask and I say, well, I dimension to the inside, they're going to want the outside. And if I say I dimension to the outside, they're going to say, well, I want the inside. So guess what I do? I do both. So you can see here, we have that dimension and we add 10 inches and we dimension to the outside of the wall and the inside of the wall to the center of the beam line, which is the center of that footing line there. So those dimensions are all in. Likewise, we have these verticals going here, and I do the same thing. We have the outer 10 inch, inner 10 inch there. Also across here, we have the same thing on this beam line. So I like to do it on both inside and outside. And then lastly, one of the things that I think the concrete guys really like, and occasionally we even forget to do it, and they're like, hey, can you put these on the foundation plan for us? But we give diagonals. So we'll snap to that line. And, you know, it's funny because a lot of people think, hey, can you do this? I mean, it's only a couple snaps in CAD, right? I mean, you click a couple points and it just does this, right? Well, for the most part, that probably isn't true. But in this case here, it is simply click, click, and then drag it out, and I can give you that dimension. So we give them those there, and those are guidance to understand that if they put a tape on this and they pull it, it's 50 foot 6.5. If they're at 50 foot 6 3/8, then yeah, they're probably doing a great job there. If they're at 50 feet 8 and they're off by 1.5 inches or something, then they might really want to recheck and see what they're doing. So this gives them the opportunity to understand exactly what's going on with those numbers. And then you can see even some of the smaller ones, we'll go from there to say here, and we'll give them that diagonal there. So that's pretty much it on the inside. On the outside of the foundation, we have some piers that we have to deal with here. And that is carrying our porch up above. I like to hold a pier off 3 feet rather than bring that whole load into this. That way there, it's almost like this is cantilevered. We can just put a light duty joist hanger on the outside, and we don't have to actually penetrate that wall system because we put that extra footing in there. And those are 12-inch tube footings on a 28-inch spread footing. In this case here, I think Jim actually went with some pre-manufactured ones, which we consider kind of 6 of one, half dozen of the other, that they can swap in and out. So I'm not too worried about that. And like I've been saying in this series, you know, Jim and I have worked together for 30 years. So we've done a lot of projects together. So he knows pretty much. And if he doesn't, he knows enough that, hey, let's call Steve and have a discussion about this. And then you can see over here, we have a series of piers. We have some double lines. That's because we have a screened-in porch above here. So we have pier there, pier, 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 picking that up. And then those are, you know, 2 center points there. 2 3/4 means it's a 5.5-inch square wood column. And then out the outside here, we basically have our deck, and we're picking up some piers out at the corner, one at midspan there, one at midspan there. So that'll allow the framing here. This one will just go all the way to there, and then they'll pick up in here and go across there. And these will go all the way back to the house, and then we'll fill in where the stairs go. So, but anyways, I mean, that's a comprehensive yet pretty quick look at the foundation plan. So hopefully you enjoyed that. Hopefully you're enjoying the series. We got a bunch of stuff coming.